Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. Our broadcast today comes from our most recent Meta Strategy Digital Symposium and features a conversation I had with Kevin Stine. Kevin's the chief of Applied Cybersecurity Division at NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology's Information Technology Laboratory, or ITL. He's also NIST's chief cybersecurity advisor and associate director of cybersecurity in the ITL. In this role, he leads NIST collaborations with industry, academia, and government. And in our conversation today, we discuss the evolution of the cybersecurity landscape and the frameworks being adopted to manage this risk. Kevin talks specifically about the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, the new updates the organization rolled out recently, and why global alignment is important to help U.S. businesses remain competitive in global markets. Finally, he talks about the future of cybersecurity, how companies are implementing better risk management measurement capabilities, and why the introduction of quantum computing can pose a real threat to organizations. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Kevin, welcome to our conference. It's so great to see you. I've certainly enjoyed in getting to know Kevin, the expansive view that he has, representative of the ecosystem and company that he keeps, and the numerous leaders who he works with to help them ensure that they are current in terms of their cybersecurity initiatives and their posture. Kevin, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for making time for this audience.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Peter. And because I'm from the government, we do have a lot of acronyms. So yeah, you noted that in my bio. Thanks.
Exactly. Well, many of you who've joined us would be familiar with the NIST framework. It's one that I featured prominently, in fact, in my my most recent book, Getting to Nimble. I think it's so important in these complicated times to have a framework of some sort, NIST being, I think, one of the better ones, to ensure that you have an expansive view. You get your arms around what it means to have a better approach to cybersecurity in an ever-evolving and complex scenario that entails. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the evolution of your own thought process as somebody who has previously been a CISO at the FDA, somebody who's again been a leader at NIST for more than a decade and a half. One of the things in a recent conversation you mentioned to me was an emphasis on risk management and risk-based approaches rather than just compliance, that it's important to have this kind of philosophy in place in order to be a better custodian to that which you that needs to remain secure. Talk a bit about your thought process there, if you would.
Yeah, happy to. So look, we believe that every organization manages risks every day, whether those are financial or operational, safety, reputational, compliance. That list goes on and on. And quite honestly, cybersecurity is just another type of risk that organizations need to manage alongside all the others. And I think at the same time, every organization, and I certainly experienced this when I was the CISO at FDA, and certainly in our interactions with many across government and within industry as well. Every organization has unique missions and business objectives. You have different risk tolerances, and quite many times we all operate in different regulatory environments as well. Our focus at NIST is very much on a risk management approach. We believe that's the most effective way for organizations, whether you're a for-profit, whether you're a nonprofit, a government agency at any level. That approach really helps to account for your uniqueness and really align your key cybersecurity outcomes and priorities with your mission and your business objectives. Now, I want to be clear, I mean, compliance is important, and in many cases, it's a necessary area for many of our organizations. But we believe compliance can be achieved through, or really as a byproduct of, a strong enterprise, effective cybersecurity risk management approach, and really a broader enterprise risk management approach. And I think many of the resources we produce at NIST, like the framework that you mentioned, really seek to help equip organizations to better manage that cybersecurity risk in that organizational context.
Yeah, very interesting. You also noted, I know that the framework is itself being adopted to a much greater extent internationally in addition to domestically. And I wonder if you could share some observations, as you've also become involved to a greater extent in some of the broader implementations of the framework. What are some of what have you observed as that expansion has taken place?
Yeah, so I think a few things. I mean, one, we've been thrilled with the international uptake of the framework since it was first released in 2014. I mean, that continues to be a significant area of emphasis for us, that international outreach and engagement. I think just within the last few weeks, we hosted an initial workshop to really launch our update to the framework. We're calling it CSF 2.0. And it was exciting to see about 4,000 individuals participate in that one-day workshop. But perhaps even more interesting was that there were 100 different countries, actually over 100 different countries that participated. Now, some of those could be onesie, twosie participants from a nation, industry, or government. But in some cases, we had, in the hundreds of participants from other nations. And that really speaks to kind of that international resonance of the framework in all of these different ways, both on the government and the industry side. I think the cybersecurity framework is standards-based. It provides a standards-based approach, and I think standards are core to everything we do at NIST. I think, as we've talked about before, standards is in our middle name at NIST. So the CSF really helps to shine a pretty bright spotlight on the use of cybersecurity standards. And we've received feedback frequently that this idea of global alignment is critically important to help do things like avoid confusion and duplication of effort, even conflicting expectations in global business environments, and even really helping U.S. businesses be much more competitive in global markets. That's certainly near and dear to our core mission and really our purpose at NIST as a part of the Department of Commerce. I think the importance of international standards in the framework has been widely recognized, and we've seen many countries and even in other international entities adopt or adapt the framework because it's compatible with those international standards that they seek to use first. It's not necessarily that some nations use the NIST cybersecurity framework because it's a US issued resource, but rather being able to point to and leverage an international resource that aligns and is harmonized with the cybersecurity framework is critically important.
Yeah, very interesting. As I think about some of the case examples you've shared with me, one of the ones that was very compelling was Saudi Aramco. Talk about international adoption at an organization of enormous scale. I wonder if you could share a little bit of an overview of that use case that you've broadcast through your website as well, to highlight some of the ways in which it's being used internationally in a large, complex organization like that one.
Yeah, happy to. So when we first launched the cybersecurity framework, we decided where organizations were willing to share their story of what the challenge they were facing, what value proposition they saw in the cybersecurity framework, and then share a little bit about their journey and the impact that use of the framework had on addressing their cybersecurity challenges. We decided to pursue those opportunities, and we call those we refer to them as success stories. And certainly one of those came from Saudi Aramco. And I think in the case of Saudi Aramco, they really talked about both a few challenges and a few opportunities that came out of using the framework. I think they certainly expressed challenges that many organizations of all shapes and sizes would, around having a language that is understandable about cybersecurity at all levels of the organization, kind of from the proverbial C-suite and board of directors down to the bits and bytes folks in the data center and everything in between. So they certainly talked to that challenge. But they also talked to, given the nature of their business, and I'm sure many organizations that are participating today this resonates with, is that not all of us are just information technology shops. Many of us have operational technologies. Think of the power providers or control system environments and operators like that. So you have this mixed environment of IT and OT, or operational technologies, and certainly Saudi Aramco had that as well. And like we talked about before, given their mission and kind of their footprint in the space, they had to be prepared to comply with both national and international rules and regulations, and really demonstrate how they could incorporate those cybersecurity best practices as a means to express their cybersecurity capabilities. And they saw value in the cybersecurity framework as helping to address all of those challenges that they observe within their organization, as well as how they interact with others outside of their organization, whether it's partners or suppliers or overseers in one way or the other. So their success story really talks about their journey and using the framework to help address those challenges and the way it worked out very positively for them.
That's interesting. Talk a bit about your own recommendations in terms of measuring the effectiveness and ongoing maturity of cybersecurity efforts across different kinds of entities.
Yeah, this is definitely a hot topic. It's one that certainly has come up in our discussions on the framework update, to 2.0. And it's always one that gets quickly into the merits of qualitative and quantitative approaches to measures and metrics. And as a measurement organization, NIST at our core is a measurement organization. So this is an area that we do focus a lot on. Although I will say it's a hard problem. I think if it was an easy problem, we or others in the community would have kind of cracked that one a long time ago. So it's something that we, just given the nature of cybersecurity, we continue to focus on alongside many others. Every organization wants to kind of gain and maintain that maximum value and effect for the resources that you're expending in cybersecurity. That's the same for government agencies as it is for, I'm sure, organizations of all sizes in the private sector as well. I mean, if I'm investing $1 in cybersecurity today, am I getting equal or greater return on that tomorrow? Am I more secure today than I was yesterday? And I think importantly, how am I compared to my peers? Those are all hard questions to answer. Our focus at NIST is I guess, in a couple of different ways. One, help to better equip organizations to more purposefully and effectively measure cybersecurity activities, kind of the effectiveness of their activities, so that they can then better manage cybersecurity risks that they identify. So through our suite of kind of technical guides, we're trying to incorporate more measurement capabilities. Some of those are very specific bits and bytes level measures and metrics. Some of those get a little bit harder when you're talking about that composition issue of those lower level technical measures and how do those translate into things that will actually resonate at the board level or at your senior executive level. Still a work in progress. There's just as much a research opportunity that it is an applied space today. We look forward to continuing to collaborate with folks on that one.
Yeah, very interesting. Would love your thoughts about this emerging topic, investment in post-quantum encryption. Certainly, maybe not something that's relevant, next week, but something that perhaps in the not too distant future will be. But what are your thoughts there?
I think if folks take nothing else from this few minute discussion we're having, is that it is time to start thinking about post-quantum cryptography and transitioning to algorithms when they are available and standardized. I mean, our role at NIST, we constantly try to look to the future to anticipate the needs of US industry and society as a whole. And when they're built, quantum computers that are powerful enough to break present-day encryption are going to pose a serious threat to the systems and the data that require encryption today. We know that to be a fact. Over the last 6 years, we've run a very open process that's involved NIST cryptographers as well as leading cryptographers from around the world, perhaps from some of your organizations or organizations you work with. And we did recently, within the last 8 weeks, 6-8 weeks or so, we did recently announce our selection of the first group of algorithms that are designed to withstand a future quantum computer. And we know these algorithms will become part of a NIST post-quantum crypto standard, which we're expected to put out within the next 2 years. We're going through that process now, and it takes time. That standardization process is going to take time, but I think, as will the process for technology and product developers and service providers to then integrate those new algorithms that have been standardized into the products and services that you all are using within your organizations. But it's important that while those activities are occurring, it's imperative that folks start to prepare now for that upcoming transition. That doesn't mean start deploying algorithms. There's still work that has to be done there to prepare them for that eventual deployment. But you should be thinking about the transition now and beginning to do things like taking inventory of what data you have to protect, what you're using to encrypt that data today, how long you need to protect it through encryption, so that you have that inventory, so that when the products and services, the products are available that use these post-quantum kind of crypto-ready algorithms, that you'll be able to transition a little bit more gracefully and smoothly. And we have some efforts that are underway now, working very closely with many in industry to prepare, if you will, toolkits and blueprints to help guide that process along. So I look forward to sharing more of that as that becomes available.
And Kevin, to just in brief, as we're nearly out of time, if folks who are in attendance wish to collaborate with NIST or find out more, where might they go in order to do so?
Certainly, you can visit nist.gov/cybersecurity. That'll take you to a great landing page that will then branch out to a lot of different priority areas for us. That will include also many different ways for stakeholder engagement, whether that's commenting on many of our resources, which we really value, those public comments and feedback to help inform and improve them, but also other collaboration opportunities where we can kind of roll up our sleeves together and work on some of these challenging areas that affect not only different sectors, but certainly the nation and the world as a whole.
Wonderful. Well, Kevin Stine, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the great work that you and your team do, the very important work that you do. So grateful also that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to join us today as well.
Hey, thanks so much, Peter. I appreciate it.